Okay, so we're journeying through Genesis. It has been kind of an adventure if you're paying any attention to it. And we have seen Joseph sold off into slavery last week, and a lot has happened in his life since then that we didn't get to read about. You're welcome to do that as homework. But if you want the short version, here's what happened. Joseph's brothers were debating, are we going to kill him or sell him into slavery, kill him, slavery, kill him, slavery. And so they sold him into slavery. From that time on, his life has been full of misadventures. He ended up going to prison for a crime he didn't commit, but then he worked his way up as a dream interpreter into the courts of Pharaoh, and he's now a powerful man. And those same brothers who sold him into slavery are fleeing a famine. And so they come all the way down to Egypt looking for food. And he recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. And so this is what happens when he has been playing the part of Pharaoh's bureaucrat, and he just can't take it anymore. He has to tell his brothers who he is. And he offers them forgiveness. And so listen to what the Spirit might speak into your life in this reading from Genesis chapter 45, and verses 1 through 15. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before those who stood by him. And so he cried out, "Send everyone away from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, so dismayed were they at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me." And they came closer. He said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land now for 2 years, and there will be 5 more years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who put me here, but God. He has made me a father to the Pharaoh and lord of all his house and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry up and go to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord over all Egypt. Come down to me and do not delay. You shall settle in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children, and your children's children, as well as your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. I will provide for you there, since there are 5 more years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have will not come to poverty. And now your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, the youngest, see that it is my mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father how greatly I am honored in Egypt, and all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here." Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, while Benjamin wept on his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept on them. And after that, his brothers talked with him. Our second reading is from the Gospel of Matthew. I've preached this one a lot of times, and it's a hard one. And I'm not preaching it today. I'm preaching the Old Testament today. But this is Matthew 15, verses 21 through 28. Jesus left that place and went away to the district of Tyre and Sidon. Just then, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But he did not answer her at all. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." And Jesus answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." He answered, "It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then he said, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed from that moment. Holy wisdom, holy word. Thanks be to God. Okay, I'm not preaching that, but I do have to clarify. There are New Testament scholars who point out the fact that after this incident in the book of Matthew, Jesus starts reaching out to Gentiles. And so maybe even Jesus had his mind changed by the woman in Scripture. So the story from Genesis that we just read, it was a little long, but I hope you were able to follow it all the way through. The story from Genesis makes it look so easy to forgive, doesn't it? So he fell on his brothers' necks, and they cried, and they were happy, and they were friends again. Does it work like that? Is that how forgiveness works? I mean, last week we saw young Joseph's brothers debating slavery, murder. Slavery, what should we give this guy that we hate? Should we sell him into slavery or murder him? And they find some merchants who are passing by in caravans, and they sell them into slavery. And today we see the same Joseph decades later, again in the presence of those same brothers who sold him into slavery, now in a position of power over those brothers. He could get revenge. He could get some really sweet revenge. He could get any kind of revenge he wants. He's got the Pharaoh's power on his side. But he chooses forgiveness. Is forgiveness that simple? What does it take to forgive somebody who has really intentionally hurt you? Or somebody who hurt you just out of carelessness? What does it take to really forgive someone? What we're missing out on in the story of Joseph, and perhaps the only thing that brings healing, the only thing at all, is the long decades of brooding and anger and silence and grief and anguish that Joseph had to endure on the long road to sweet forgiveness. What we have not seen in our whirlwind tour of Joseph's life is all the suffering that brought him to this place and gave him the ability to forgive. Forgiveness takes time. Forgiveness is made up in part of forgetfulness. Forgetfulness distances our suffering from us and helps us find new meaning that we did not see before in the same old story. When we forget old meanings, we have room for some new meanings. Forgetting purifies life and gives us the strength to move forward. I mean, let's think about forgetting. Think about the things that we so quickly forget every single day. What was your first thought when you woke up the day before yesterday? You don't know. Unless it was something like really big. I lost my place. See how easy it is to forget? What did you dream about last night? Do you remember? Where'd you put that other sock? Oh, somebody does. I don't know where the other sock is. I forgot. Forgetfulness comes to sweep away the great bulk of most of what we say, do, think from day to day. Forgetfulness claims all but the most noteworthy of things, but even those things, it changes over time. So some years ago, I reconnected on Facebook with an old acquaintance from college, a guy that I had wronged many years ago. That's the thing I like about social media. There are people I kind of care about, and I don't want to lose touch with them completely, but I'm never going to go visit them, and I'm never going to call them. But if they show me pictures of their food on Facebook, at least we're still in some kind of relationship, and I can check in with them if I want to. That's what I like about social media. I wronged this guy many years ago, long before I ever considered becoming a pastor, okay? Here's how it all went down. Please don't judge me, I was young. There was a dead snake in the parking lot. And it wasn't just a little garter snake. It was one of those big western snakes, one of those pretty ones with like designs on its back, maybe a diamond back, I don't know. This was Oklahoma. They had snakes. At that time in my life, I couldn't pass up the opportunities offered by a dead snake, especially a really scary looking dead snake. I was powerless in that snake's hands. Oh, forget it. Snakes don't have hands. I premeditated that joke and it just didn't land. I wanted to scare someone. I mean, here was this snake. It was perfect. It was pretty. It was scary. And so I looked around the men's dorms and I found a door standing open with no one inside. The whole reason I went to that college was because we all got private bedrooms. And so I sneaked into his room. This was a guy that we were acquaintances, we were not friends as such. I sneaked into his room and I coiled that snake up on his desk with its head kind of sticking out toward the door, and I left it there. And then I did something even more stupid. I went and bragged about it. Apparently and unknown to me, this guy did have a fear of snakes. And what I found out later that really made me sad was that he had been getting bullied by some other guys on campus. And when he got home and he found the snake on his desk, he screamed so loud I heard it from my own room, and I was like, oh yeah, that's Kevin. He screamed and he threw his hairbrush at it, broke his hairbrush, because back in the late 80s, men had hairbrushes. Maybe you still do, I don't know. He quickly found out who had put the snake in his room, and the next time I saw him, he did not get angry. He gave me a wounded look, as if to say, you too. And I tried to laugh with him about it. I tried to, I thought it was funny. It was a dead snake. What'd you do with it? He did not want to laugh. He just seemed hurt. Fast forward 2 decades, I get a friend request from this guy on Facebook. I think, okay, he's forgiven me for the snake incident. With trepidation, I accept the request and we chat a little on Facebook. He was from Philly, and this was probably, 2016. Do you remember that one game where the Philadelphia Eagles really trounced the Steelers? It was like 34-3 or something like that. He wanted to talk about that because this was 2016 when he got in touch with me. Even though I only watch football when the Steelers are in the Super Bowl, except for the last 2 times, which I missed. And finally, I said to him the thing that was on my mind. I said to him, listen, I'm really sorry for what I did in college. It was so stupid. Putting that dead snake in your room, that was mean. I wouldn't do anything like that now. My prefrontal cortex was not yet developed. Let's blame that. Do you know what he said? He said, snake? What snake? There was no snake. You and I were always cool, he said to me. But there was a snake. I coiled it with my own 2 hands on his desk. There was a snake, but he did not want to remember himself as a kid who got bullied in school. And so he forgot something that I remembered in my guilt, and that he, in his shame, needed to forget. He put it away. He let it go. He didn't want to remember himself as a bullied kid. And I still feel awful about it, and I'm glad that he forgot and then forgave, but I think it had to happen in that order. I think he had to forget before he could forgive. One by one, our moments, our days stream into forgetfulness, and in time they are lost to all except the mind of God. It can feel like a great sadness, this forgetting that takes place daily in our lives. But maybe sometimes it's a blessing as well. Joseph has had decades to ponder just how awful his brothers were to him when they decided, well, are we going to kill him or are we going to sell him into slavery? That fateful day so long ago when his jealous brothers fell on him and tore off that beautiful coat, that maybe ridiculous coat, that their father had given to him and to none of the others. And then they sold him into slavery. I imagine that for years Joseph seethed with rage, and the only thing that got him through those years, I would guess, though the scriptures do not say this, was the idea of getting back at those brothers. Sweet revenge. When they fall into his clutches, they'll be his. Revenge was perhaps the dream that kept him going as he languished in an Egyptian prison for a crime he didn't commit. It could have given him purpose in life. And you know, when you hold on to something like that, something awful, something ugly, and you rub it smooth daily, and you return to it over and over and over, you get used to it. And in some weird way, even that bad feeling starts to feel comfortable. It starts to feel like the way things are supposed to be. You get used to it. But now in recent years, tiny cracks have been forming in that idea for Joseph. The smooth surface of his dream of revenge is starting to crumble. The story used to be very simple. His brothers were jealous. They were rat finks. They sold him into slavery because they hated him. But time and distance have given him a broader perspective, perhaps on life and even on what happened. Not that he was to blame for what happened, but that he didn't make things any easier for himself by strutting around in that coat and telling his brothers about those ridiculous dreams where they were all bowing down to him. Do you remember those? He probably wasn't doing himself any favors, young and immature as he was, to flaunt the fact that he was their dad's favorite. And so it's not that he brought it on himself, but he begins to see the bigger story, the bigger picture of what happened. Yes, he was young and immature, but now with age, he can look back at something that he has told himself stories about for decades, and he can see it with new eyes, in a fresh light. The story is no longer simple, and now he's able to find new meanings in an old story that he has held for so long and seen in only one way. The new thing that he expresses to his brothers is, okay, you did something awful to me, but God used that awful thing that you did to me to save your lives. God used the awful thing you did to me. I don't like what you did, and I used to not like you. But I like who I have become. And I've become this person in part because of what you did. And so we are going to let it be. We are going to forgive each other. And we're going to embrace each other and weep on each other's necks. Do you see what he did there? I don't like what you did, but I like who I am because of what you did. It's a hard thing. This is the beauty of forgetting, for without some small degree of forgetting, we might never have the room in our hearts to forgive other people. Forgetfulness is a gift sometimes. It clears away the debris. It allows new life to occur. Of course, if we forget too much, we lose track of ourselves. But you know what I read just recently? Every memory is just a memory of the last time you remembered it. You're not remembering the event itself, you're remembering the last memory you told yourself about that event. And so your memories change down through the years and you don't even know it. You think you're remembering things accurately, when in fact, memory rewrites itself to protect us, to serve us better. Time brings healing and renewal and new life, new meaning. There are so many kinds of forgetting and so many kinds of remembering. There's the self-protective forgetting, like my acquaintance from college. But then there are all those everyday forgettings that seem to only matter in the moment. All the passwords that we have to remember. And they tell you can't reuse the same password because it puts you at risk. Appointments, telephone numbers, we don't remember those anymore, do we? Pans left on the stove. You know what's always fun? Tell a pastor, not me, a different pastor. Tell a different pastor on the way out of church, you know, I was thinking about what you said in your sermon last week. And then watch their eyes go a little blank as they try to remember what they said in their sermon last week. There's the normal forgetting of day-to-day things, which is healthy. It saves the mind from overload. But there's also the forgetting of those things that would be painful to remember, burdensome. The debt of gratitude that weighs so heavily on you that you kind of need to set it aside in order to function. The guilt that would crush you if you dwelt on it, but that memory helps you to get over a little bit. The human mind is always striving for clarity. And in order to have clarity, it will let some things go. It can hurt to forget. But forgetfulness, too, is the sweet daily gift that keeps us moving forward. And so, what does this have to do with forgiveness? Look what Joseph does when confronted with his brothers who sold him into slavery. He says, "You did a bad thing, but it turned out okay for me in the end. And so, let's just move on. Let's take our relationship from here, and let's try to move on as best we can." Time alone gives us the wisdom and the distance to re-see our own stories in their rich complexity. The forgetfulness of time allowed Joseph to see his past in the bigger picture for how it would serve a bigger purpose in the world. Because he suffered, he's now able to rescue his own family and this father that he loves. He doesn't say anything about his mother. She might have died before he was sold into slavery. And after time had dulled his initial pain and anger, Joseph is free to assign new meanings, perhaps better meanings, to old events. You know, we choose how we tell our own story. We choose how we read our own story. We get to decide how we're going to talk to ourselves about our life's journey and how we're going to tell it to other people. We get to decide that. It's a beautiful freedom. It's a lot of power. And so, if you are struggling to forgive someone today, be patient. Be patient, and don't be too hard on yourself. It takes time. Very often people will say, "I forgive you." And they'll say it prematurely, though it can take decades. A better thing to say might be, "I've decided to begin the long, slow, and painful process of trying to forgive you." Write that on your Hallmark card. I've decided to try to forgive you. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to try to forgive you. And once you've made the determination to forgive, then preheat the oven for 2 or 3 decades and allow the hand of time to visit you with the tender gift of forgetting the things that can't make you better and holding on to the things that can. Making your pain and your anger more distant, giving you a broader perspective on how things turned out for you and where you are in life. And then when the moment is right, allow new meanings to emerge from stories that you have been telling yourself over and over and over again, because you might yet find new meaning in them. They might contain new meanings. And if you are waiting to be forgiven, take heart. It might yet happen. I think all of us are waiting to be forgiven by someone. It is my prayer that this process of healing can take place among the peoples of our world, between Israelis and Palestinians, between Black Americans and white Americans, between Muslims and Christians, between conservatives and liberals. It is time in the life of our world, and maybe time in your own life, to assign new meanings to some of the old stories that have got us stuck thinking we understand them, when perhaps we don't fully. They keep us stuck in cycles of anger or bitterness or brokenness or fear. You know, very often the people against whom we hold grudges, they're not even there anymore. They've changed. Or they're dead. Or they're old. People change. Can we say with Joseph, I don't like what happened to me, I don't like what you did to me, but it worked out okay in the end, and so we're good. I forgive you. Having learned to forget the things that harm us and hold on to the things that make us healthy and strong, let us look for new meanings in old stories. Amen.